Now let's talk about the history of operating systems. The first operating system was Unix, and it was originally developed in 1969 at Bell Labs. It was first written in assembly and then ported to C. Since then, Unix has been used to make a lot of Unix-like systems such as Linux, FreeBSD, Mac OS X, etc. Unix was designed to be portable, multitasking, and multi-user in a time-sharing configuration. Unix and Unix-like operating systems are widely used in servers, workstations, and mobile devices. Now this is a time scale of Unix and Unix-like systems. As you can see, it starts at 1969 from the ultra time sharing system of Unix made in Bell Labs, and since then it has been used to produce so many other operating systems. Now let's talk about the history of GNU or Linux. The Linux project was started by Linus Torvalds in 1991. On August 25, 1991, he announced his project on the Minix news group. It was initially based on Minix, but he did not share any source code. It was in the middle of December 1992 that he published version 0.99 using the new GPL. He called it the best thing I ever did. The official mascot of the Linux kernel is Tux, Torvalds Unix, short form for that. January 22, 2007, the Linux Foundation was formed, focusing on promoting GNU or Linux. GNU Linux is distributed in the form of collections of specific packages called distributions. Distributions can be free, for example Ubuntu, Gentoo, etc., or commercial, like the Red Hat Enterprise. Linux has a small but increasing percentage of the personal desktop market and has the majority percentage in other applications such as servers, supercomputers, embedded devices, etc. This is basically due to its flexible and open source nature. Now let's talk about one of the most famous operating systems, Mac OS X. It is a Unix-based OS and GUI developed. It is marketed and sold by Apple and was first released in 2001. Initially it was restricted to run only on PowerPC processors, but seeing that was not exactly very successful, the transition to Intel processor was announced in 2005 by Apple. In 2009, Apple completely dropped support for PowerPC, and now the operating system supports both 32 and 64-bit versions. iOS is Apple's operating system for mobile devices, basically iPhone, iPod Touch, and iPad. It was released in 2007. It is based on Darwin, a Unix-like system, and runs on XNU kernel, which stands for X is not Unix. Based on Mac 2.5 with other components, which is a hybrid kernel. It has a fairly big percentage of the personal desktop and mobile devices market at current. Now let's talk about MS Windows. Microsoft first introduced an operating environment named Windows in November 1985. It was an add-on to MS-DOS. 16-bit operating system running on top of DOS, providing multitasking and GUI were the first features of the Windows. Windows 3.0, which was released in 1990, and Windows Workgroup 3.11, which was released in 1992, were its successors. They basically improved the design and began the concept of 16 or 32-bit operating system. Windows 3.1 also had Internet Explorer browser as a part of the operating system. Since then, Windows 95, Windows 98, and Windows ME, which was released in 2000, came by. They had the 32-bit operating system and used FAT file system. They supported DOS as well. In 1996, Windows NT 4.0 was released, and it proved to be a true multi-user and multitasking operating system based on the NTFS file system. It was later replaced by Windows 2000. The more recent versions of Windows included Windows XP, Vista, 2003, 2008, and Windows 7, and the currently released Windows 8, which are all available in 32-bit and 64-bit versions. Now, Windows has the majority percentage of the personal desktop market and a small share of the server, mobile, and embedded device market.
Now, coming to the end, let's summarize whatever we have learned till now. Bootstrapping, the initial set of instructions when the computer is opened, transfers control to the operating system using a bootloader. Bootloader is stored in the MBR and may also be stored on the storage device. Operating systems that are responsible for managing both software and hardware resources. Examples: Unix and Unix-like, Microsoft Windows. Components of operating systems: user interface, interface between user and machine, which can be GUI, which uses Vim paradigm, or CLI. The processes, instances of a computer program. Multiple processes can be run using time sharing. The kernel, which acts as an interface between applications and hardware. Manages resources, CPU, memory, input, output, and processes. Device drivers, instance between kernel and devices. Hardware dependent and kernel specific.